What's up there, Workforce? Chris here with Work to Game, and it is time for me to go to FanFest. Brian is already out there, and I am on a plane right now, and so I wanted to get this video up there so that you guys would have something in today, a gap between our normal content and the beginning of FanFest coverage. We are out there for pre-registration, and I want to talk very briefly about everything kind of surrounding going back to classic games. We talk about the lack of horizontal progress in current games. We talk about wanting to go back to Final Fantasy XI, wanting to go back to vanilla WoW, that kind of WoW classic experience, wishing that Diablo 3 could be Diablo 2, wishing that Warcraft 3 could be remastered. And there are people, and you hear people saying, I wish they could just come out with a Final Fantasy 16 that was as good, or a Warcraft 4 that was as good, and really you're setting the bar of something past, and so the new thing just has to fill those shoes exactly. And so it's a tough bar to fill. And I wanted to kind of sit here and just discuss very briefly, like, what is it we want from these games? What is it that they did that was unique? First of all, you know, Brian and I just recorded right before this, so it's probably already gone live, a video talking about kind of what makes people want to go back. But my question is, what can we do about games moving forward? What can we do about making sure that our current games can be improved? And so really that's the topic that I want to drill in on today. And what I think the issue here is it's the same problem with low voter turnout. We just came out of a midterm cycle here in the United States, and you know, we had record midterm numbers, but those midterm numbers were still not even close to the entire voter eligible population. And so we hear the same thing in games. You hear people saying Blizzard is not listening. You hear people saying Square Enix is not listening. And first of all, there's a huge difference between listening and hearing. So are we communicating in a way that they can hear us? Are they making an active effort to hear us? If you say something 10 or 12 times and your significant other doesn't seem to grasp it, either A, they're not trying to grasp it, and that is a problem, or B, you're not saying it in a way where it makes sense to them. And so you need to try maybe phrasing it a little differently. This can't be like when I go to another country and they don't speak English, so I just say English louder and slower. That doesn't actually bridge the gap. I need to learn their language if I want to communicate with them directly. So when we talk about gaming companies, what effort are we making as a community to help bridge that gap? I understand that it is not the community's fault that games aren't what we want, but what can we do about it? What can we do to help steer developers towards making the games that we want? We sit here and we talk about wanting to go to games past, but I don't want to just keep reliving the same games over and over. I want to move to games forward, and I don't want those games to just be remakes or remasters of old games over and over and over, because eventually I'm not going to want to play those games again. I want to know that it is possible at some point in the future that there's going to be a new game that I'm just as excited about as I have been about some of the all-time greats. And I think one of the issues is that we don't do a good job reaching out to the developer in the formats where they expect feedback. So first of all, you know, making sure that we have good questions at Q&As, whether those be online or at conferences. A lot of times we spend Q&A time focused on, I have a blue cape in this game and I was wondering if you could let me make it red. That doesn't ever drill down to the game being better. And even if your question is on a glamour or transmog system, we have got to do a better job as a community thinking about how to make that question broader. So, you know, we talk about the depth of transmogging glamour systems. Is there something that you're doing in the future to help us alter those textures to make a wider array of combinations, right? So what are you doing with dyes? Not just what are you doing with this one item. We also ask questions about individual tiers of rating and individual story questions, but those are one-off questions, and once that event comes to take place and that raid either comes out or doesn't, and that story either happens the way they ask the question or it doesn't, that question is dead. And we have a chance there to start a dialogue instead and say, how are you looking at story long-term to make sure that there's a long-term progression? Are there ways that you're looking to make story branches where we as a community can help you guys decide, do I go left or right on the story arc? There are questions that we can ask that help take the part of the game in the way we want it. They're a little bit leading questions, right? Get a little bit of our community opinion essence in there. And the other place we can do that is the forums. How often are we posting on forums where it's not just toxic, this sucks, or this is, I love this, and how much are we actually giving constructive, actionable feedback. Now, if there is just thread after thread after thread of tens of thousands of posts all giving the perfect format on how to deal with daily quests or world quests in one of these two MMOs, and they're ignoring it and they're just charging forward and they're giving us daily actions and, you know, roulettes and things that are not rewarding, and we're not engaging with those systems, but we're constantly trying to give feedback, then that's their fault, right? They're not listening. But until we reach out and give overwhelming, you know, a display of not only that there's a large number of us, one guy making a brilliant post just sounds like one guy. These games are made up of more than one player. So it's got to be a number of upvotes or a number of, there's got to be something that kind of defends our case, because right now I do not feel that gamers have the right to complain about where gaming is at. Because right now, the feedback mechanism we most engage with is our money. And that's the only one that we're consistently showing up at the polls on. That's the only one that we're consistently saying, this is what I like and what I don't like. And the problem with that system is it's very binary. It's very on or it's very off. And so what ends up happening is they come out with a new piece of content and you unsubscribe. Okay, well, was that because you didn't like the new piece of content? Or was that because that was one more time they didn't adjust the mount system the way you wanted? Or was that one more time that PvP didn't get updated? There's no way for them to dissect unsubscriptions from what the core problem is and how you would like it fixed. So they can't do anything about it. And even if there's an exit survey and it just says, I didn't like this or I didn't like that, I shouldn't have to be driven to the point of unsubscribing to get feedback to them, because by then I've already bailed. By then I'm already frustrated. So you coming out with a good PvP system, if I've been waiting a year for a good PvP system, by the time I'm quitting, I'm already moving on to the next game. I'm not going to just keep coming back to this one thinking it's new or different or better to just get burned over and over and over. So you can't wait until somebody serves you with divorce papers to say, hey, I'm ready to talk about our marriage. That can't be the first moment that you're at least trying to hear them out and trying to communicate what you need in return. And so I think that us as gamers have got to do a better job of being a better partner in this relationship and understanding that, you know, they may not listen the first time. They may not hear us the first time. The difference there being comprehension. But we've got to continue to show up and try to be vocal on those forums. And I don't just mean the same 1,000 of 10 million players. There are active members of the community that are on those forums. They put questions in the Q&As, they're in the live chats, they send emails, they call customer service when the servers are down. There are those people, and if you're those people, thank you. Absolutely thank you. And I'm sure a few of you in the comments are going to say, I do give feedback, I do. But that is not representative of the community as a whole. That is very much like voter turnout. We have a very vocal minority, and so it is very easy for the gaming company as a whole to either say, I don't understand what they're saying because the way they're saying it doesn't make sense, and the guy who is saying it the way they can understand is being quiet, or they can say, well, that's an isolated case. And so we've got to do a better job about saying, okay, I want 11 to be remastered because I don't like where 14 is at. Well, what is the core issue with 11 and how, you know, being better, and the core issue with 14 not being good? And how often are we reaching out to the community and saying, does anybody else feel the same way as me? How do we let the developers know that this is what we want? Because we have a tendency of asking for something and then it shows up and it's not exactly what we wanted, and so we just bash it as bad and move on. They've spent all these months, they tried. Where do you guys think Eureka came from? You know, where do you think these Battle for Azeroth changes came from? Things like garrisons, the changes to garrisons, you know, the changes to world quests, right? Being from daily quests. This is them listening. And you can argue whether or not it's them hearing, but this is them listening. They don't just sit around and say, how can we take one part of our game and tear it to pieces and spend dev time changing it to something else that'll really piss players off? They really want people to like their games, and we've got to do a better job of saying, this is the part I liked and this is the part I didn't. And I'm making this video because I've started to realize this is a problem with where I'm at. And so maybe you guys totally disagree. Maybe I'm the only guy looking in a mirror here and I'm the only one not communicating, but I've started realizing the things I don't like about games are not things that I've ever posted on forums about. Going to BlizzCon really kind of opened my eyes to the level of feedback they get and really gave me a lot more sympathy for how hard it would be on their end to listen to 10 million voices that are mumbling. People say, oh, you don't hear me. They're not even listening to me. Well, I'm not at lunch with your friends where you're complaining. So if you're not complaining to me, I have no way of correcting it. So, you know, without expecting them to start doing what like we always accuse Google of and just eavesdropping on every mumble ventrilo Discord conversation and you know, pinpointing, oh, we got this tone from listening to millions of hours of we've been spying on people. How do we expect them to hear us? We do a really good job of talking to each other about how frustrated we are, but I'm not sure how much of that makes it back to the developers in a meaningful and understandable way. And maybe part of the problem is that they don't have an easy way for that feedback to show up. Maybe right now their forums aren't set up in a way where we can submit feedback easily, but if that's really the case, if that's really the problem, then that's what we need to spend our time asking for. We need to be up in arms saying, I want to tell you things, and right now you're not listening. So before I can tell you them, first build a listening device. Build some tool on your website, in the game, wherever, that I can give feedback and help me talk to you in the way that you're listening. If it's easier for you to just put a poll that's optional in the corner and I can get tokens towards a mount every time I answer these polls, fine. And we'll just go, I'll answer a poll every time I log in. If it's easier for me to type out, you know, feedback and you're going to have a staff looking over these, tell me where I can do that. Tell me where there's a system that I can interact back so that it doesn't come to the point where I'm ready to quit a game for you to say, oh, this guy's really upset because he just unsubscribed. That can't be the moment that 14 or WoW realizes that I'm upset. Because when I got to that point with WoW in Mist Pandaria, it took me 5 years to come back. I don't want to quit 14 for 5 years when I get to that point. But on the trend right now with the recycling of content, they're really not gearing a significant portion of their content each patch towards things that I want to do. And so if I want that to change, then I need to say something. So that's just kind of some thoughts I had. You know, maybe it was just well timed with BlizzCon and the midterms for me to kind of think, well, have I been exercising my voice? Because if I'm not showing up to vote and I don't like who my congressman is, that's my fault. Whether or not my vote would have determined it, if I'm not even showing up, then others like me aren't showing up, and we as a group, that's the reason that we don't have the congressman or the senator that we want. So if I want games to be better, then I've got to find a way to communicate with devs what I think would do that for me, what I need. And not in a way that's like, I need blue capes. It's got to be something that they can act on. I need a broader cosmetic system. I need a more balanced PvP system. I need quicker match times. What is something that they can go out and say, okay, that's a nice broad topic. There's a dozen ways to tackle it. Are any of them feasible? Yes, we found one. They act on it. It gets implemented, and then I give another round of feedback. Okay, that kind of scratched, you know, the itch that I was having back here, but not quite. What I also need is this. And then they can go act on that. They really are here to entertain us. They really are here to deliver a product that we pay for, even if they're just in it for the money. The only way to get my money is to develop a game that I'll play. So like, even at the greediest, simplest level, if you just assume these people woke up and said, I want to go into gaming and have crappy hours for what is oftentimes mediocre pay for the majority of the industry compared to what they could make in other industries with the same software development skills, etc. Even if you just assume that's what somebody wanted to do with their life and they hated video games, they would still want to make a good game if for no other reason than it would sell a lot of copies. And I honestly think from anybody I've ever met in gaming, they do it because they love it. They do it because they want people to enjoy playing their game. We just need to tell them what it is we enjoy and what we don't so they can work on it. So my name's Chris with Work to Game. I'd love to hear your feedback down below. Maybe I'm way off base. Maybe it's not our fault at all and there's nothing we can do to change it and gaming is dead. Maybe gaming is the greatest it's ever been and there's definitely an argument for both there. And the feedback is out there. I would love to know what you guys think down in the comments below. My name's Chris. Hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, it's me. I'm in Chris's office. He doesn't know it, but we've got other videos for you to check out right here. And we've got the vlog down there in the corner. Plus, we've got some contact information, and you can totally subscribe to the channel that way as well. So we hope you do. We hope to see you in our next video, but until then, take care.